everybody. Thank you. I have a story about that in a second, but I just want to say hi to everybody who's tuning in right now. We are streaming live on YouTube, on Facebook. This will be an audio version of the podcast. You could find it on iTunes, on Spotify. You may be able to catch clips of this on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you find your social media. This is the Zoop Podcast. Thank you for tuning in, I should say. My name is Jordan. I'm your host. Today, we are joined by Jessi Sheron. She is the creator of The Other Happy Place. Her campaign is live right now. You could see the HTML, the link, kind of going below on the screen on the Cryon if you're listening to the audio version. The link is in the show notes. Check it out there. Jessi, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to speak with you. Although I do have to say, I saw one of your other interviews and you had this wonderful background that you used.
That's not my house. My office is in the laundry room, as you can see behind me.
Well, I have a curtain separating me between everything else that's going on in my house, so I got you.
If I do more interviews, I'm going to buy a curtain. I can't live like this. All right, yes. But yeah, it's so great to be here. Really happy to be here.
Thank you, and thank you for complimenting our intro. Little known fact, I don't think we've discussed this on the podcast yet, but that is from an album of my old band from about 23 years ago.
Really? You're multi-talented. That sounded really good. My sister's a musician. I'm going to see her on Friday, so that's really awesome.
What does she play?
She sings and plays guitar. So it's like a rock band. They're really good. Yeah, my baby sister. She's 11 years younger than me.
So, but you guys have a very creative family then. If you're a writer and storyteller and an artist and she's a musician, do you have other siblings that are into other worlds of art?
Just about all of us. My brother is doing fashion design right now. I think my only sibling that's into sports is my youngest brother, Sonny, who was a very good wrestler in high school. But yeah, we all are very artsy. We we're very Partridge Family in that regard, I suppose. So yeah.
Does that come from your parents? Are they also sort of in the arts?
Yeah. Well, actually, my mom's technically a homemaker, and my dad is a estimating engineer. But my dad is an oil painter for fun, and my mom has always written novels, plays for fun too. And I was like, growing up, I really liked writing and pictures, and I was like, I wish I could put those both together. Comic books. Yeah, it was revelatory when I discovered comic books. I was like, I could do both at the same time. It was very exciting.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Are they supportive?
Yeah, they love it.
That's cool.
My mom is able to handle the scary stuff more, even though my dad is a Stephen King fan, but it's all written down. I'll show him my art, my current stuff, like the Other Happy Place stuff, and he will go, "Oh, I can tell it's really good," and then very stiffly leave the room, like clench up his body and leave because he's too scared of it. And I'm like, Dad, thank you for your support. I know that it's too scary, but I feel your support. Thank you, Dad. Yeah.
Well, here's a question. Do you think it's too scary for him, or do you think he's scared of the fact that came out of your imagination?
Oh, he's always supported of me having a very wild imagination. So it's like the visceralness of like a bug burrowing into your skin or coming out of your skin is very like, he can't handle it. I can barely handle it, and I draw it, so I understand. So,
gotcha.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I mean, it sounds like a unique upbringing, if you will. Yeah. I mean, my parents had no creativity. I feel like. Yeah, and that's not a slight on them. I just feel like it wasn't
everybody's
something.
Different.
Yeah, that they were more about like security and getting a job and all that, and not necessarily. Even though, going back to the music thing, I did play drums professionally for about 10 years, and they never I feel like they never understood it. So it's cool that you actually have like parents who are like, yes, go do, and were supportive of it.
Yeah, I'm very lucky in that regard. That's also really cool. I've heard drums is like one of the hardest things to be good at. So the fact that you did it for 10 years is like nothing to scoff at. So I'm impressed.
I'll just end it here by saying that drummers are apparently smarter than everybody else.
You have to, it's like math.
Google it. There is math, there's hand-eye coordination, there's all of that. But at the same time, Jessi, I can't draw, I can't paint, I can't do the things that you do.
Well, thanks, yeah.
And speaking of which, like, what's your chosen or your preferred medium? Are you more digital? Are you more oil paints? Are you more pencil, ink? Can you talk about that at all?
Sure. So I went to school at FIT, the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York, and it was the 2000s. And at the time, it was really funny because a lot of my teachers were very borderline elderly, so they were like 70, 80 years old, and they were convinced that computers were like a flash in the pan, and so they didn't want to teach us digital art at all. They were like, just learn, charcoal, acrylic paint, oil paints. And so I actually know how to do all that stuff. I love working with ink and brush when I work traditionally. That's probably my favorite methodology. But I learned all these traditional techniques, but they really do feed back into digital art. They had one Photoshop class at 8 in the morning. And I don't know if you've ever been a college student, but people don't like to go to the 8 a.m. classes.
I know.
I would show up early because I was like, I need to know Photoshop because this is going to help me in the future. But the artist who taught me Photoshop was really cool because he was saying the best digital art can evoke the techniques of traditional art. And if you can unify those two qualities, you will make really good art. So I think about that a lot. But yeah, I work in traditional now. Like just about everything you see in The Other Happy Place is traditionally drawn. I mean, I'm sorry, digitally drawn.
Okay, whoa. I was like, whoa, that would be insane.
I got mush-mouthed by my bad. Everything that you see in The Other Happy Place is digitally drawn, but everything I do was like informed by that like traditional art know-how. And then like I taught myself a lot of Photoshop and all that stuff because like I said, it was very bare bones, 1 hour a week at 8 in the morning isn't going to teach you everything. But I was very like into digital art, and I was like, no, this is the future. And so it obviously was. But I like knowing how to do both because it's very, you can switch on the fly if you like, if somebody's like, hey, I need this hand done, and you're like, okay. But yeah, my process is digital. I've been studying a lot of like old film lately to get like an understanding of light and shadow. Like if that's what I'm really trying to evoke in my digital art is like not even like black and white photography, but like German expressionism films, old silent movies, even 1940s movies, they had a different quality of the light. The light was almost a character. So I think about that a lot when I'm working digitally. Yes, Dr. Caligari, thank you. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. My brain was like, yeah.
Thank you, Chance, our wonderful producer, chiming in there on the chat.
Saved me, yes. But yeah, I work digitally, and I have a pretty standard process of like sketch, ink it, which is when you clean the outlines, flatten your colors, or in my case, black and white. And then I go in and I really focus on the lighting every time. And that's like where a lot of the labor of the picture is. It's just very fine layering of light and shadow until I get the right evocation of the feeling of what the mood that I want. Yeah.
Gotcha. And when you went to FIT, was that initially for fashion, or was it just for art and that side of things, and FIT kind of offered that as well?
So I love fashion. It's like one of my favorite things that I don't do professionally. You know what I mean? Like it's an interest, it's like a hobby interest. But FIT is, it was originally just a fashion school, but it pivoted to being all different arts with a fashion focus. So my first year I was taught fashion illustration, and the second year I was taught general illustration. While there's a fashion focus, which actually I think shows up in The Other Happy Place, and it will show up more. I try to think a lot about character costuming whenever I do any of my stories, because I've noticed in movies that so much of the character can come out in the clothes. So after I realized that, I became deeply enamored with like Eiko Ishioka, who did the costume design for Bram Stoker's Dracula, and Tarsem Singh's The Immortals, I think it was called. She did these wild, like evocative designs. Like she did a suit of armor that looks like it's made out of muscles. Like she's probably one of my like biggest visual influences that isn't like a comic book artist. I look at her stuff all the time.
That's very cool. And hey, Chance, if we have some of the art from The Other Happy Place, can we maybe bring it up? Because, so the campaign is live right now. It's going fantastic.
And as you can see, everyone's been so nice. I'm so happy.
Well, you're lovely. There's nothing to not be nice about. But so this is really like a zero issue. This is sort of like, the character designs or the Bible, or, I mean, can you kind of explain a little bit more about this particular book and maybe what we could expect, to come next out of this?
Sure. So yeah, I'm calling it Chapter 0 because it's like, I'm almost thinking of it like a pitch Bible. I want to be like a sampler of like, this is what my vision of the entire series is going to be. But I also just think these art pieces I've made are good enough on their own that I wanted to showcase them. Yeah. And people were, my followers were like, I would love an art book, and I was like, really? Okay, I would like to give you one. And I was approached by you guys, and it's going so well. I've been so happy. But yeah, so the art book being a chapter 0 is like you get it's like almost like a movie trailer. I want to like show you this world. You get to see some of the buildings, the vehicles, the creepy entities that run everything, and there are going to be like you can see some of the lorem ipsum in there right now, but it's going to have a few story elements and things like that, and just like a little snippet, just a sentence, a paragraph or two. But I want to give you this feeling of like, oh, what is this world? Because it is another world. I'm trying to develop an entire dimension, essentially. A culture, buildings, vehicles, what they wear, like what they like to eat, the advertisements on the walls. Like I really love when a location is as much of a character as anything else. So like I really am trying to make the other happy place feel solid. Like you could go there. That's what I'm trying to do right now anyway. So but that's what I think the pictures evoke, is like this feeling that you're looking in on another world. Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, and just talking about the campaign a little bit, Chance, if you can bring up the campaign page. I mean, so what did we have? This was a $5,000 goal, and I think we blew past that like in a few hours.
Yeah,
I think.
I think it was like 4 hours you hit that. Like, yeah, it was really fast. I was
I mean,
I was
so
really touched.
you have a fan base here. You have some support, some people that love what you do. I mean, we're halfway through the campaign, over 400 backers, over $17,500. So, if you could scroll up a little bit, we could show some of the rewards that are available. People, if you haven't backed the campaign yet and you're kind of taking a look at this, you can get the book. You can get the book signed. There's art prints. You can get a digital copy. I think we have commissions available from Jessi as well. So some really limited edition rewards here that you could check out. Whether you're into digital art or horror or just cool stuff in general. And look, I mean, if you were late, you missed some rewards as well. So I'm incredibly happy for you that it's been going so well.
Yeah, it's been awesome.
And I'd love to know a little bit more about some of your other work. I know that you had put out a full graphic novel before. Please remind me of the title of that.
Sure. The Sea in You. It's about a teenage girl named Corinth who becomes friends with a deadly mermaid named Skyla. And Corinth has a bad boyfriend, and the mermaid Skyla is a man-eating species of mermaid, and she does not like the bad boyfriend or how what bad boyfriend is treating Corinth. So that was a webcomic I made. I pitched it to Iron Circus, who just released a animated short today of Lackadaisy, which is like huge.
I saw that going everywhere, but I wasn't even sure what Lackadaisy is.
Lackadaisy is another webcomic. So what happened with Lackadaisy is, well, I'm getting sidetracked, but essentially Lackadaisy worked with my publisher. My publisher has produced an animated short, and that's what's being released today.
Gotcha.
And it's going very well. But my webcomic, The Sea in You, I made and I've made it over several years, and I was like, I want it to be a graphic novel. I pitched it to Iron Circus. They said yes, and it's coming out this summer. There was a delay because of the pandemic, so you know. But but it's coming out this summer, so I'm like, whoa, the Zoop book, wow, my graphic novel. It's like when it rains, it pours, right? Yeah, busy year. And what's really cool about the CNU is it was just in Publishers Weekly, the top 10 YA books coming out this year, like YA graphic novels. I was like, things are happening for me very suddenly, and I'm not used to it. Like, do you know what that feels like? Like
10 years for an overnight success, basically?
Yeah, exactly. It's like everything is accumulating all at once, and it's like, oh, okay. But so that's why I'm flying out to Chicago for ALA, the American Library Association conference.
That's a big show. I don't know if you've ever been before.
I've never been. I've always wanted to go. So I'm like, I can't believe they're flying me out. I've never been flown out anywhere. I feel so fancy. I'm like, ooh la la. Like, even if they put me on like the lowest, even if they put me in storage on the plane, I will feel fancy. Like you could put me in the overhead storage. I'll just scrunch. It's fine.
Amazing. Congratulations on the success.
You.
Wait, so is that technically your first released physical, like non-webcomic type of thing?
So I was about to tell you what I did before that.
Yes.
No, that's fine. So that's my first graphic novel where I own like the story. I wrote everything. I drew everything. Before that, I worked for several years for Mattel. I worked on what they call asset illustration and production design for like books. I drew for Ever After High, Monster High, which just came back. I drew the entire graphic novel for Ever After High. I drew most of the picture books, any print material. I drew a lot of the art for Ever After High for years and years.
Wow.
And I drew 2 Monster High books. And I drew a Shopkins book. I've done some stuff for Barbie, and I did one thing for Lego. But a lot of that stuff you don't even get to put your name on it. It's like it's made by the company. You draw in the house style. But it is really funny because people like look at The Other Happy Place, and it's very like body horror, cosmic horror, existential horror. It's like, what if you were overtaken by a being from another dimension and you didn't even notice because it was making you feel so happy? And then people are like, what else you worked on? I'm like, well, I drew these books for little girls. And they're like, what? Like, that was my bread and butter for a while. But both of those doll lines stopped production, and then they were like, sorry, we don't really need you. And then, boop. But that's okay because I was able to pivot to my original work, which is what I really wanted to do anyway. So it worked out.
So do you prefer being the sole creator on a book where you're writing, where you're doing the art, or do you prefer the collaboration?
So like for The Other Happy Place, I'm working with my friend Kaylin Sandell, and she's a writer. She works in video games, and she's going to help me with the story. She's already helping me a lot with the story. So I love collaborating with her because she is, in my opinion, a narrative genius. But like I've come up with the world of The Other Happy Place, and she's helping me refine it and make it into a good narrative. And so like I love working with her every moment. Like also we're making the game together. Me and her are making an RPG Maker game of The Other Happy Place. So that's one of the things I was working on, where I was like, oh, I have a podcast today. I have to stop working on the game to go talk about the book about the game. So I was like, so I had to stop. But I when I have a great chemistry with the other person, it's just as exciting to work with someone else. But like it can be a bit of a drudge to draw things that you don't have any right to. It's a little sad. Like the money's cool and the prestige is cool because you're like, yay, I'm working on this thing. But it's like, it's not your heart. So like I've always had so many ideas in my head all the time. And so like all the time, I'm always like, I just want to be working on these stories. I just want to be making these characters. So when you're drawing things for other people, it's like you're growing as an artist, you're compounding your skills, you're building your portfolio, but your brain is like gravitationally pulled to the story you want to do, and you're like, I'm sorry, I can't draw, I'm busy drawing. Like so it's like I like both, but my heart likes to do original stories that I at least half own. That's how I feel about it right now. And
is there a plan, not is there a plan, but what is the plan for The Other Happy Place? How many issues, or like how long do you see it going? Okay, so my dream for this project is to be multimedia. So I want to do different formats that create the same world. And you can enjoy each one of those formats alone, or you could get them all together and have a fuller experience. So the 2 main things I'm working on right now are a RPG Maker game. So it's going to be a pixel art 2D game of my character Vinnie, who you see some in the art book. She is going to be in an art museum in The Other Happy Place, and she's trying to escape. And it'll be like puzzles, like a puzzle horror game and an escape game. So that's the one thing I'm working on. And she'll be like dealing with, weird things happening in the museum, things trying to kill her in the museum. That'll be really fun. And the other thing I'm working on is the backstory of the villain that you see in the art book, the guy with the butterfly coming out of his head. His name is Julian Smiles. And he used to be a normal man, or at least part of him did. And I'm writing a comic that is telling his story. But like, I have do you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm so passionate about this project, and I can't dream small. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to get the game done, the game done. I'm going to get the comic done, but I do have like other plans after that too. But I'm trying to hold myself in and do one thing at a time. So right now it's art book, game, comic. Those are the 1, 2, 3. That's what my focus is right now. So absolutely. And we're here to support. I'm not going to put you on the spot and ask any questions about where things are winding up, but we're here. I've loved working with you guys. I don't have a single complaint. I was like, you've been lovely. So it's like, oh, thank you. I've spoken very highly of you guys to all my friends, my other comic book friends. So yeah. Well, thank you. And I guess dipping into a little bit of the crowdfunding talk. I mean, this is your first venture down that road, or have you been a part of other campaigns before?
This is my first one that's like me doing it. So my publisher, Iron Circus, whenever they announce that they're publishing a book, they do a crowdfund also. So the CNU was crowdfunded, but it's also traditionally published. It's weird, the future of the internet. This is my first crowdfunder. It's just like, you order it, we're gonna give it to you. Like, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So it's like, let's go. This is so much more crowdfundy in the way that I understand it. Like
Yes.
that was a lot more steps. I was less involved too. It's like it was.
I got you. They took care of it. Yeah, they took care of it, and it was going to go to print and be released no matter what. This is just kind of helps, kind of like front the bill for like printing and production and everything like that.
It also gets everyone to know about it. Like a lot of these people only really know a thing when it's crowdfunding. I'm sure I've gotten some new followers just from this, like because people see it being shared and they're like, well, why is so many people sharing it? Oh, it must be pretty good. So it's like, the process. Yeah.
Well, the cool thing is, two things I want to say is, number one, to be associated with Iron Circus and have a book come out with them is that's pretty amazing. I mean, they crushed the crowd. Yeah, they're crushing the crowdfunding game, and I mean, as one of the top independent publishers, really in the world of comics, graphic novels, like YA, all of that.
Yeah.
But the second thing that I noticed is you have 2 Twitter accounts, one for you and one for the Other Happy Place, but they're both like incredibly healthy follower accounts. Like sometimes when you see an artist or a creator, they have their main account and that has like thousands of backers, thousands of followers, and then they have like the account for their property or their title, and it only has like 50 or 100. But you actually, so how long has the Other Happy Place been sort of like out in the world for people to know it and follow it like this?
It's pretty fast. So I really only started that account in November of 2021. So that sounds long in internet times, but it's very short for me. And it went from no followers to 33,000 followers in like 18 months, which is crazy.
And it has more followers than you do, I think.
Yes, it does. It does. And I literally, what was funny was, so my main account is more like my YA stuff, my wholesome stuff, my stuff that doesn't have blood, no cussing. Like, it's very like anybody can go there. I keep it PG, hard PG-13 maybe. But like
it's SFW, we like to say, right?
Yeah, it's SFW. And I was like, I floated to them. I was like, if I start posting horror art, will you guys mind? And a lot of people were like, I really can't handle horror. I followed you because you're wholesome and sweet and post happy things. If you posted horror, I might have to unfollow. And I was like, well, I'm not even that good at horror, I said to myself. I'll make
That's pretty funny.
I know, right? It's like, it turns out it's my deep passion. And sometimes you just got to believe in yourself. You got to go for it. Like, right. So I was like, I know what I'll do. I'll just make a side account. I already had the very vague idea for the Other Happy Place. I wanted to do a cosmic horror story with body horror elements, something invading your psyche. And so I was like, I'll make this side account. I already know I'm going to call it the Other Happy Place. I'll just call it that. And I threw up some art I was working on. And it like one picture got like 40,000 likes, which I've never had happen on an original piece of art before, ever. Like, and I was like, do people like my scary ideas? Am I actually good at this? Like, and people were like, yeah, we like it. What else do you got? And I was like, okay, I can show you what else I got. And I kept going. So I like having the separation though, because like, again, I could go over there and talk about the CNU, and I can go over to my main account and be my horror account and be like, hey, scary stuff, blah, 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 blood, guts, and murder. And nobody's upset. But what's cool is sometimes I do get some cross potential. So what I didn't notice, what I didn't know was like today I was like, oh, I'm gonna promote my mermaid comic. It's International Mermaid Day. I'll post up a link and say the book's coming out this summer. I put it up, and I immediately got a bunch of responses that were like, you made the CNU? I'm a huge fan. I love it. And I was like, you followed me and you didn't know? So
wow.
Like, yeah. So it's really funny. I keep having this experience where like I almost like exist in 2 ways on the internet, and I don't know which one people are expecting. So it's kind of funny. The internet's such a weird, surreal place sometimes.
You got to feed them both. I mean,
yeah, but I love both, so it's fun for me. It's like it's nice that I can. Like when I was working on only Mattel stuff, it becomes so. Even though I love dolls and fashion, I actually really do. I think they're cool. It becomes so saccharine, and it's almost like you can't taste anything but sugar. So when I was working on Mattel stuff, I would play horror movies. I'd be playing Hellraiser. I'd be playing, in the Mountains of Madness, all this stuff. And then when I was working on scary stuff, I would start being like, oh, I'm too spooked out. I'll put on some cute Disney stuff. And I realized I just really creatively like to bounce back and forth. And it's like I have ADHD, and it seems to like give my ADHD a chew toy. It's like, oh no, we're not bored. We'll just switch. And I'm like, yes, we'll just switch. So you can work with your brain.
That's amazing. When I work, if I'm working on something, I can't be watching something else. I can't be hearing like words. I can listen to classical music. I could listen to like instrumental, because doesn't feel like anybody's talking to me. So I'm always impressed when someone's like, oh, I'm working and I have to have this playing, otherwise like I can't even focus. It's I don't know if it's impressive or it's like, oh no, that's just like ADD or ADHD.
Yeah, it's really common with people with ADHD, is like you need a certain level of stimulation to be able to zone into what you're doing.
Oh, wow.
When I was growing up, I would get like A pluses on my school papers, but I would doodle in the margins, and the teacher literally like circled it a big red marker and said, never do this again. And I was like, but when I stopped doodling in the margins, I would get worse and worse grades. So wow. I was like, I'm not being bad. This is how I pay attention. So what I ended up doing was I would get blank pieces of paper and just shove them so that just the edge was sticking out of my test. So I would doodle on that and still feel like I was drawing in the margins, and then I would get a good grade on the test again.
Wow.
Yeah.
My God, I feel like you've, like, in the last like 2 minutes, we've uncovered so much that we could just like veer off and continue talking for like an hour about like your horror and what movies you like and everything like that, and talking about like how the school systems are crazy, like different from when we were kids, and how maybe that wouldn't be the case anymore. Mm-hmm. But I have a few sort of like quick questions that I ask a lot of creators that come on the show. But I mean, take us back just initially, real quick. Like, what was sort of your introduction into comics, or like your first comic that you remember reading? And then second part is, you had mentioned some of the people that are inspirations to you, but outside of the world of like comics and graphic novels.
Yeah.
So who would they be? Who might those people be, your inspirations in the world of comics and graphic novels be?
Okay. So to answer your first question, first comic I saw that I knew I was interested in. I had always liked comics when I saw them. Like, I liked reading the newspaper comics, and I did like when occasionally a older boy would leave like an X-Men around, I would be like, oh, this is neat. But I was in English class, and a girl in front of me was reading an issue of Sailor Moon, and and Magic Knight Ray Earth. Those were the two she had on her desk, and I literally like grabbed her by the shoulder because they were so pretty. I'd never seen such pretty art, and I said, "What are those?" And she said, "They're manga." And I said, "What?" And she said, "They're comic books. They're made in Japan." I said, "They're for girls?" And she said, "Yeah, the girls made them too." And my mind was blown. I was like, "There are comics that girls make and girls read." I was so happy, and like I was 13, and I knew that was what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. Like I like was locked on. I was like, yeah.
The big aha moment.
Mm-hmm. And after that, what was really funny is I went from reading Sailor Moon and then Magic Knight Ray Earth, and then I didn't have any other comics. And my friend was like, I have some manga, and he gave me Akira. So my third thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit of a jump. Akira's like a super dark, gory, cyberpunk future doom manga. It's really good.
But I feel like it explains a lot about your dichotomy of your work too. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, maybe it all goes back to like that first introduction and your viewpoint on either the form or like the things that you actually enjoy watching and creating.
Yeah. Even as a kid, I noticed when I found something scary, I wanted to keep watching, and I still am like that. That's why I really understand like cosmic horror protagonists, the one who has to read the Necronomicon, who has to go into the haunted house. I've always understood that, because like even as a little kid, I was told, don't watch that, that's too scary, and your brain's like, well, let me see, and then like obviously it was very scary, but then it stays in your head. And I was impressed by the power of how something could just be an image and stay in your mind. So and Akira was very much like that. Sure. I was like upset and horrified by it, but I couldn't put it down. And I was like, why is this so magnetic? And it's because it's very well done, and it is very visceral. And like I love revisiting it as an adult. Of course, there's lots of things. I was a very naive 13-year-old. I didn't understand quite a lot of it, but it was still like I could tell it was good. And then you asked me about my influences outside of comics. That's a fun question.
Oh,
So like,
what you would mention your influences outside of comics. I was asking,
in comics. Okay.
yeah, within comics, whether writing or art.
So many. So Mike Mignola is probably a big one. Junji Ito, of course, huge horror manga author. Just came up, the Netflix series anime just came out about him. Trevor Henderson, Slimy Swamp Ghost, he's super famous. Chris Straub is a creator who made the comic Chainsaw Suit, and he made the creepypasta Candle Cove, which got turned into a sci-fi series. It's really scary. He's a huge influence. He's so nice too. I'm trying to think. Suguru Tanaka, a lot of Japanese artists that a lot of people don't know, but he draws these landscapes that look like they're made out of meat and blood and lit by these little tiny distant stars, and they're so hauntingly beautiful. Like they're so nightmarish, but they're so drawn so well that I want to go there, and I don't want to go there. Like, obviously you'd have a very bad time. It's a world of blood and guts, but it's drawn so mysteriously that my brain goes, I want to see it myself, even though it's, it's imaginaries. Gosh, there's so many, but those are probably the big ones. Kazuo Umezu. So it's a lot of manga.
No, that's great.
He was the artist who influenced Junji Ito. He's still alive. He's like 90, but he's still kicking.
Wow.
And he made this series called Orochi, which is Japanese for blood. And that was one of Junji Ito's biggest influences. I found him because I was like, well, who influences my influences? I'm really into that. So I always I joke, I hoard research. I just love knowledge. Like, I don't know if zodiac stuff is true, but Virgos apparently love to study. And I'm very much that stereotype. I love to absorb any knowledge I can from other artists. There's a book called Steal Like an Artist. And the idea is like your influences can shape your creativity. So I really try to get a wide net of like, anytime something pulls me at all, I'm like, why do I love that? What is drawing me to it? What is evoking this feeling in me? Why do I want to understand? Not so that I can do exactly what they're doing, but so that I can understand my approach. It's like they made a path, and I can figure out my own way up the path if I study them. It's really cool. I love studying other artists. I have so much admiration for like the entire art community. Yeah.
Same, especially since I can't do any of it. So, last two questions, and then I'm gonna let you go. But by the way, I mean, this flew by. I know,
I've had so much fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, honestly, like, maybe we'll do it again another time.
Sure. I mean, heck, I'm gonna do the comic. I'll probably approach you guys. So it's like, you know,
come on back. Absolutely.
6 months.
Yeah. Two last questions, rapid fire, and then we're gonna promote the book. Let people know where they can find you online and all that.
Sure.
What is your desert island run or your desert island book? Like, if you were stranded, what's like the one book that you would have to have with you? And number two is, who is your dream collaborator?
Okay. Number one, the book I would take to a desert island. That is such a good question. So there's books I've read over and over again, and they always like are entertaining. Like Stephen King's The Stand, I think is just like his magnum opus, and I think it's so good. But you know what one would probably give you the most return is House.
I like how you're thinking about this.
No, it's a good question. It's like because it's like, will I enjoy rereading it? Will I get more out of it later? So it's like, what would give you that? I mean, look, if you were going to be real smart, you'd be like the entire works of William Shakespeare bound in leather or something, or a book on how to build rafts, you know. But I think House of Leaves.
I think that was probably I'm so sorry, that was the best answer. A book on how to build rafts. I love it.
I'm not staring on this plate. There's no McDonald's. I can't live here. But House of Leaves, probably, because it's really hard to read it, and it has so many levels to it, and you can always notice new things, and it's really hard to get through anyway. So it's like, what better time to read an incredibly difficult surrealist tome than All Eternity on an Island? That's probably what I would be best at tackling. House of Leaves.
There you go. And then, who would your dream collaborator be?
Guillermo del Toro. Always.
Awesome.
I literally keep joke tweeting, but it's like not a joke. I keep being like, I have to make him notice me. Like he's on Twitter all the time. I'm like, I have to make you like me, Mr. Guillermo del Toro.
Look, and he's a fan, right? Like, he's a comic guy. He's in the art. He's in the art world for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Anybody who's listening to this, how do we get it so that we could hook up Jessi with Guillermo del Toro?
I just think we'd be good friends, if nothing else. We have a lot in common.
There you go.
We have similar tastes. We both love Frankenstein. I'm very excited for his new show. Like, it's gonna be great. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, if we could make that happen, I would be very happy.
I'd like it.
Otherwise, Guillermo, if you're listening, if you're watching, use your phone. Check out the QR code right here for the Other Happy Place. You can find the link here in the show notes. If you're listening to the audio podcast, the link should be there as well. Go back it. Jessi, where can people find you online across all social medias?
Best place to find me right now is my Twitter, Other Happy Place, and my Tumblr, which I do believe is the Other Happy Place because I was able to bag the V. Let me double check because I hate saying it wrong. Yes, here we go. The Other Happy Place, Tumblr.com. Yeah, and yes, my Twitter handle. I try to use the same name place to place so that you can find me. But yeah, those are my two main hubs at the moment. Yes.
Absolutely, and like I said, I mean, honestly, this was such a pleasure. I feel like
really
we can continue talking, but we'll save it for another time. Jessi, thank you so much. Congratulations on the campaign.
Thank you for having me. Thanks for everything.
Same here, and Chance, I guess take us out, man. Thanks.